survivor. We're learning about HTML and CSS. We're going to do a little bit of a review in this. This is an entire course of videos. You can find the playlist on YouTube. Here are links to all of the resources right there. So I think if I do that zoom in, it screws up OBS. I'm not going to do that. It's right there. They're all right there.
Is that on Google Docs? Or?
That's in the ether. All you need to know is this. That's the code. You put that in, you get there. Or this one. Right here, BCTJ5L.
I'm saying, how do I get that?
Right there?
Like I write it down?
Yeah, take a picture of it.
Oh.
You getting your phone out? Let me know when it's ready. All right, so a little bit of review. You know, one thing I want to look at is the dark web and Tor browsers. So maybe we'll take a little time and do that at some point. And we got this idea of separation of concerns and rule sets and linking CSS to HTML, right? You all have that. And we've seen multiple CSS selectors, which means I could select two elements in my rule set, H1 and P, H1 comma P. Anybody not know what I'm talking about? Get, go, gat, right? So if I wanted to, I could select, you know, all of that, and I could also maybe have a paragraph here and something. And so I could say I select all that and also select that paragraph and make it green, right? So there are multiple selectors. There's one selector. Here's the next selector. This all is right here called a rule set. Rule sets have a selector or selectors. And then they have curly braces, a declaration block. Inside the declaration block, right, between the curly braces, we call that a block of code. We have declarations. So there are declarations. So we've learned that. Multiple CSS. We've talked about IDEs, and we also talked about GitHub, and then HTML Essentials. File naming conventions. You name your files whatever you want. But index.html is the norm for the main page in a website. Folder naming conventions, like maybe we'll have a folder for pics and we'll call it pic, and we'll have our pics and we'll have a folder, you can name the folders anything, but generally it's all lowercase and shortened. It's not the full word. Essential tags, paragraph is the P element, H1 through H6 are the heading elements. The H1s through H6s. Anybody not know what I'm talking about when I say H1 through H6? Angel, you're shaking your head. What's that mean?
I know.
Right, so here's an H1. Ha-ha. We'll call it 1. There's an H1, an H2. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. Bum, 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 H4, H5, H6. I'm a survivor. And I no longer have any of that open. Reveal in Finder. Open! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, the formatting isn't what's essential. What's essential is that this signals to search engines the level of importance of this information on the page. So this is kind of how we outline stuff and signal to search engines what's important on a page, H1 through H6. Those are your headings. So we've learned about heading. We've learned about unordered list element and ordered list. So UL, OL are unordered list or versus ordered list. UL is unordered list, OL is ordered list. And then the LI are the list items that go inside of it. We've learned about Emmet and Emmet cheat sheet. And we've learned that HTML tags, right, can have attributes. And so like here are some tag attributes. And we have the link element as rel, style sheet, href. Those are attributes. Image element has source, and then the source of it, and the alt attribute. Anchor element has href. And then target. This is for a link. Paragraph element can have a class attribute, right? So those are all attributes. So here are the attribute parts. And then we have relative URLs versus absolute URLs. Uh-oh, you got to go?
Yes. Now the interpreter will be back, or will be here too.
Oh, okay. We have relative versus absolute URLs. We haven't learned about that yet. So let's just make sure we're checking things off, okay? So we'll look at that here in a second, relative and absolute URLs. And comments, we've seen that. Somebody make a note, relative versus absolute URLs. Somebody write that down. Angel, you got me? So we're going to come to that in the next video. And we'll just finish the review up here and then watch another movie trailer until our translator gets here so Z can be joining us. And then we did CSS Essentials. You know, there's some stuff in here that we need to cover too. So Angel, make a note of that. We're going to come back to CSS Essentials because we kind of jumped over all of this, and there's a lot of good material in there. And we went straight to CSS Selectors. So we learned about element selectors and class selector and an ID selector. And we also saw there's an attribute selector. So tags have attributes. You could actually target stuff on the HTML page with CSS Attribute Selector. We saw about link, visit, hover, active, and they have to be in that order. And we also saw focus. And we saw first child, last child, in child, odd, even, nth child, nth last child, in, right? The AN plus B, which is like YMX plus B kind of a deal. Only child, first letter, first line. And then we had these nested selectors, which are kind of fun. A direct descendant is this one. This is any following sibling, right? Whether or not it's right next door. And this is any only single plus one following sibling. Has to be right next door. And we haven't learned about margin zero auto or anything like that. And we just learned about CSS specificity. So the next thing for us to take a look at is going to be margin zero auto. And then we're going to dive a little bit more into the CSS Essentials. But first we'll do absolute and relative URLs. And then I'm just wondering where we start learning about so here's some formatting and structuring, so that's coming up. Okay, cool. So that's what's coming. A little bit of a review.